Okay, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on when you're watching this video. I want to go over the Lesson 17 homework activity with you. So if you get out your blue folder that says Science and Math and open it up, on the math side, you're going to pull out the piece of paper that says Lesson 17 homework in the top right-hand corner. Now, before we went on spring break a long time ago, we did Lesson 17 as a class. I just want to go over the Lesson 17 homework with you to refresh your memory. So we're going to do this one together. Before we start, I want to do a quick little review. So remember, if we have a shape and we divide it into two equal parts, then that is called halves. If we take a shape and divide it into three equal parts, it's called thirds. 4 equal parts, fourths. 6 equal parts, sixths. 8 equal parts, eighths. And you'll notice that halves and thirds is different from the rest. Once you get to fourths, you're going to start adding a THS to the end of the number. So you're going to continue, be the same thing, ninths, tenths, 11ths, and 12ths, and so on. Okay, I want to model how we would do a fraction on a number line. So down below, I have a whole circle that has been divided into three equal parts. We're going to do the same thing with our number line. We're going to take our whole number line and divide it into three equal parts. Now, the first thing I want to do is make sure I look at my whole numbers. I see that it begins with 0, and it ends with 1. Okay, so I want to make sure that it's one whole number. So in order to divide it into three equal parts, I am actually going to only draw two lines. So just because it says three equal parts, don't draw three lines. You're only drawing two lines. So now I can see that from here to here is one part, from here to here is one part, and here to here is one part. So I have three equal parts. Now, if I wanted to label my fractions, I know that it's three equal parts, so my denominator is going to be a 3. So when I start at 0, my fraction would be 0 thirds. Then I jump to the first part, and that would be 1/3. Jump to the next part would be 2/3. And jump to the last part, that would be 3/3 or 1 whole. Remember, when the numerator and the denominator are the same, then it's equal to 1. Okay, so if I'm looking at this, it says if 3/3 equals 1 whole, then how many thirds are in 2 wholes? So if we look at our circles, it's pretty easy to figure it out. So 3/3 is equal to 1 whole. And same thing here, 3/3 is equal to 1 whole. So how many thirds are in 2 wholes? Well, if we have our picture, we can just count. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 thirds is equal to 2 wholes. Now on a number line, what you're going to do is you're going to make sure you look at the whole numbers. I can see it starts with 0 and ends with 2. And there's a 1 in the middle. So from 0 to 1, that is 1 whole. I'm going to try and write with my finger. And from 1 to 2 is 1 whole. Okay, so when we divide something, remember, you divide it into three equal parts within the whole. So if we're dividing into thirds, I'm going to divide from 0 to 1. I'm going to divide into three equal parts. And then from 1 to 2, I'm going to divide it into three equal parts. And then I can count to see how many thirds are in 2 wholes. If I start at 0 and count, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So there are 6 thirds in 2 wholes. Now remember that fraction line is also a division sign. So we can look at this as 6 divided by 3 equals 2, if we want to check ourselves. And then if you go upwards, you could say 2 times 3 equals 6. And that is correct, so we are correct. Okay, let's look at the next slide. Okay, we are going to do a little practice. We are going to look at the fractions that they want us to locate and label. They've given us 3 fractions, 9/3, 11/3, and 14/3. So we know that the denominator is a 3. So we know there's going to be 3 equal parts in each whole. And if we look at our number line, we can see it starts at 3, there's 4 in the middle, and then 5 at the end. So it's actually 2 whole numbers, from 3 to 4 and 4 to 5. I want to make sure that I'm dividing each of those wholes into 3 equal parts. So from 3 to 4, I'm going to divide it into 3 equal parts. Then from 4 to 5, I divide it into 3 equal parts. So remember, you're not dividing the whole thing into 3 parts. You're dividing each whole number into 3 parts. Okay, now we have to label. Now this is trickier because we're starting at 3, we're not starting at 0. So I need to find out how many thirds are in 3 wholes. Well, I drew a picture to help me out. I drew 3 whole circles, and I divided each of them into 3 equal parts. And if you look at it, you can see it looks like 3 groups of 3, which we know is 3 times 3 from when we studied multiplication. So 3 groups of 3 is the same thing as 3 times 3, which is 9. Now another way I could have done it is I could have counted each of those parts, and I would have gotten 9. So I know that there are 9 thirds in 3 whole circles. And again, I can use my division sign and I can check myself. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And if I go up this way, 3 times 3 is 9. So I am correct. Now from here, all I have to do is count forward. So if this is 9 thirds, then when I jump to the next part, it's going to be 10 thirds. Sorry about that. 11 thirds. 12 thirds. 13 thirds. 14 thirds, and 15 thirds. Now I can check myself. Look at 4. I drew 4 whole circles and I divided them into 3 equal parts. So it looks like 4 groups of 3, or 4 times 3, which equals 12. So I was correct. There are 12 thirds in 4 wholes. Check number 5. If I were to draw 5 whole circles and divide them into thirds, it would be the same thing as 5 groups of 3, or 5 times 3, which is 15. So there are 15 thirds. So now I've already done everything that I need to do. Look up at the top. I just need to find those fractions and plot them on the number line. So the first one they wanted me to find was 9 thirds. So I'm going to draw a dot, messy dot, right there at 9 thirds. Then they wanted me to find 11 thirds. So I'm going to draw my dot, locate it and label it, and then 14 thirds. So make sure I do my dot right on the number line. Okay, we're going to look now at your paper. So go to your paper and go to number 1. It says locate and label the following fractions on the number line. So if you notice, the denominator is a what? It's a 2. So that tells us that we are going to divide each whole into 2 equal parts. If I look at my number line, I start at 0 and I go all the way to 3. So I've got 1 and 2 in the middle. So remember, I'm dividing each whole into 2 parts. So from 0 to 1, I'm going to divide that into 2 equal parts. From 1 to 2, I'm going to divide it into 2 equal parts. And from 2 to 3, I've divided it into 2 equal parts. Now with this one, it's easy because it starts with 0. So I know I've divided it in halves. So at 0, I'm going to have 0 halves. And then all I need to do is count on. When I go to the next part, it's going to be 1 half. Just keep counting up. 2 halves. 3 halves. 4 halves. 5 halves. And 6 halves. So after you have it labeled, you're going to find these fractions right up here on our number line, and we're going to put a dot on the number line. So I'm going to find 1 half, and I'm going to draw my dot. I'm going to just find 4 halves, draw my dot, and 5 halves, and draw my dot. Okay, if you need more time, go ahead and pause the video and finish up, and then press play when you're ready to go on to number 2. Okay, number 2. We're going to locate and label the following fractions on the number line. The first thing I'm going to look at is my denominator. It is a 3 on all of them. So I know that I am going to have 3 equal parts within each whole. If I look on my number line, I go from 2 to 3 to 4. So remember, I'm dividing each one of these into 3 equal parts. So from 2 to 3, I'm going to divide it into 3 equal parts. From 3 to 4, 3 equal parts. Now, what's harder is that it starts at 2. So I need to think about 2 wholes, like 2 whole circles. And if I divide them into thirds, how many thirds would I have in 2 whole circles? Well, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I would have 6 thirds. Now all I have to do is count on. So from 6 thirds, I go to 7 thirds, 8 thirds, 9 thirds, 10 thirds, 11 thirds, and 12 thirds. And then all I have to do is look at the 3 that they want me to find and put a dot on the number line where they are. So 11 thirds is right here. I'm going to put my dot. 6 thirds is way back here. And 8 thirds is right here. I'm just going to put my dot where they are on the number line. All right, so again, if you need more time, you can pause it before you go on to the next number. Okay, number 3. So this one is divided into how many parts? Look at the denominator. The denominator tells me I'm going to divide it into 4 equal parts. We start at 3, we go to 4, we go to 5, and we go to 6. So remember, I have to divide each of these into 4 equal parts. So the easiest way to do it is to divide it in half and divide each of those in half. Same thing from 4 to 5. Divide it in half and divide each of those in half. From 5 to 6, we divide it in half and then divide each of those in halves. So now it's been divided into fourths. Now, if I look at 3, I need to find out how many fourths is in 3 wholes. Well, if you want, you can draw your picture. You can draw 3 whole circles, divide them into fourths, and you could either count them, or you could say, well, if I have 3 groups of 4, that's the same thing as 3 times 4, which is equal to 12. So at 3, I've actually got 12 fourths. I'm just going to put a box around that because that's a whole number. And then from there, the same thing. All you have to do is count on. Okay, so I'm not going to count, I'm not going to write the fraction for each of these lines. I'm just going to write the fraction for each whole number, and then I can find the other fractions based on that. So if I'm at 12 fourths, to go to 4, I'm going to go 12 fourths. This is going to be 13 fourths, 14 fourths, 15 fourths, 16 fourths. Now I'm going to count up to 5. So that was 16 fourths. This would be 17, 18, 19, 20 fourths. Then to 6, 21, 22, 23, 24 fourths. And again, you can check your work. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 16 divided by 4 is 4. 20 divided by 4 is 5. And 24 divided by 4 is 6. So we are correct. Now I just need to plot my fractions on a number line. So 20 fourths is easy because I have it written down. That's 5 wholes. 13 fourths, well, I can look at 12 fourths and count one more, and that would put me at 13 fourths. 23rd fourths is just one less than 24 fourths, so I can put my dot there. Okay, what I want you to do is I want to see if you can do number 4 and number 5 on the back side by yourself. Okay, and I am going to go ahead and make another video of just number 4 and number 5 so that you can check yourself. So try it on your own first, and then I want you to go to the next video that says number 4 and 5 and check your answers. All right, I'll see you at the next video.